Welcome everybody to another fantastic episode of Concentrated Chaos with your host. Hey, it's me, it's Rusty. And for those of you that know me, I'm Rusty. And for those of you that don't, well, I'm Rusty. Thank you so much for joining me on this phenomenal day. We are in the middle of the series that I'm calling the Playbook. And today is episode 5. We're going to talk about once you get under contract, what in the world are you supposed to do? If this is your first time joining me for the Playbook in this series is my playbook for my 3-day Saturday to sold selling system where I sell homes in 3 days or less. I use it on any house, in any price point, at any condition, anywhere in the state of Colorado. And I've done this a bunch of times, and I'm going to keep doing it because it works. And so this system is my whole playbook. Everything from A to Z. There's nothing held back. I don't have any trade secrets. I'm not selling any coursework or coaching, or nothing's behind a paywall. This is everything that I do from A to Z for you. This is out there to help people and to help people only. So that's what we're doing here. This is episode 5 of 6. So we're going to talk through the pending process. Okay, we got offers in, we priced it right, we showed it right, we negotiated right, and now we are under contract. What do we do? So let's talk through how that works. So the standard time frame for a closing is about 30 days. Sometimes it's pushed out due to whatever the case is. The quickest loan that I've ever closed, I closed in 18 days. That was pretty cool. But usually it's about 30 days. So just kind of estimate that if you're going live on November 1st, you're probably closing December 1st, somewhere in there. In this pending process, there's a lot of hurdles, but the main hurdles that we're going to need to get over are inspection, appraisal, and loan. Those are the 3 places where 95% of deals fall out. I've yet to have a deal fall out over title or water rights or, lead-based paint. Those are things that you have to, handle in the contract. But the main hang-ups are inspection, appraisal, and loan conditions. Okay, so those are the big 3. We're going to go through those. So let's talk timeline. Okay, what does this look like? So we sign the contract. Within 2 to 3 days, I'm going to use MEC a little bit here. MEC just means mutual execution of contract. So that just means both parties or all parties involved have signed the contract. So if we have MEC plus 2 to 3 days, it means we sign on a Monday. We're going to have our deadline within, Tuesday or Wednesday of that. So within 2 to 3 days of MEC, earnest money is going to be deposited, usually with the title company or with real estate brokerage. RE/MAX still holds their own earnest money, which is dumb. I hate it. And I don't like having my clients' money in some other brokerage's account, but it's all regulated and there's very specific things that they have to do. So it's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I personally don't like it. I'd rather have it at the title company. So earnest money, it's going to be in the contract outlined how much that is. Usually it's around 1%, rounded down. So, for 40, let's say the sales price is $525. Typically your earnest money is going to be $5,000. Anything in the $575, probably going to be $6,000. So that's all negotiable though. And you could say, I want $40,000 or $100,000 or $500,000 in earnest money, or I want $1. And the more that the earnest money goes up, the more, I don't want to say risk you run, but there's 37 different places in a contract where buyers can, at their sole subjective discretion, can get out of a contract, and as long as you're following the dates and deadlines, and can get their earnest money back. It is very, very difficult to lose your earnest money if you have a semi-competent agent. I've never, ever had a client lose earnest money, and I never will. It's not a thing that we're ever going to do because I take care of what I need to take care of, and I protect that earnest money like it's my own. Anyways, earnest money. usually deposited at the title company within 2 to 3 days of MEC. Okay, I normally shoot for within 3 to 4 days. I normally shoot for inspection to be done. 3 to 4 days of MEC. I shoot for inspection to be done. And the reason that I really try and cram it in there as quickly as possible is because I want it done ASAP in case we cannot come to some sort of agreement on whatever is brought up on inspection, and I don't want to lose another weekend of showings. So a lot of times buyers and buyers agents will write contracts where they want inspection, 7 to 14 days out. I say, nope, we're doing 3 days, 5 days. I want it done, and I want objection and resolution to be before Saturday morning at 10 a.m. the next week. Because if we have to go back on the market, I don't want to lose that time frame. Because the more time on the market, the worse the house ends up looking for buyers. And I think we've talked about that. If not, I'll do a video on why that is. But anyways, I want inspection done ASAP. So there's a couple different deadlines for that. One's going to be objection. We talked a little bit about that last time. This is where they'll do normally what I normally recommend buyers do, property inspection, a sewer scope, and a radon test. Radon's really prevalent in Colorado. It's a very actually deadly gas, easily mitigatable though. And so it's worth, doing the $110 to actually do the test. Anyways, inspection objection, the buyer's going to do their inspections, whatever they want to do. And in their sole subjective opinion, they're going to give us a list of things on the inspection objection form that they want us to fix. Okay, sometimes it's legitimate stuff. The roof is bad. We want the roof replaced. The sewer line is, blocked or has, lots of scale buildup. We want the sewer line professionally cleaned. I've had things, the electrical panel needs to be replaced. It's out of code and it's a fire hazard. There's any number of things that could be legitimate repair requests. I've also seen a lot of stupid shit on there. I've seen cracked outlet covers. I've seen missing, what was it? It was missing hardware on the vanity in one of the spare bathrooms. So they wanted all of the hardware on all of the vanities in all of the bathrooms replaced. Things like, we want a new roof and we want a new water heater and a new furnace and a new AC and we want new plumbing and we want the house to be insulated and we want new carpet and new paint and a new kitchen and a new dog for us. There's people just putting so much crap on there that it's unbelievable. I think the longest inspection objection I ever got, I think, was 37 items, which was 37 more than needed to be. This was a perfect house. Not a perfect house, but basically what people will do, especially in multiple offer situations, and you have to be careful about this, but what people will do is they will just tell you what you want to hear in order to get under contract. And they'll, whatever price. What price do you want? Yeah, sure, we could do that. Absolutely. No problem. They'll have their lender write up, their lender that's in their pocket. They'll have their lender write up a pre-approval letter that doesn't actually have anything behind it, just in order to win the bid. If it's a multiple offer situation, people will just kind of tell you what you want to hear just in order to win. And then what they'll do is the inspection, they'll do a 37 item inspection objection with like $27,000 in repairs or $40,000 or $50,000 in repairs. Oh, and by the way, if you just give us a $15,000 credit, we won't worry about any of the repairs. Okay. They're using the inspection objection to get the price that they wanted to pay in the first place. Okay. And if they're the only offer, sometimes you kind of have to decide whether you want to go forward with this buyer. It's maybe not that extreme where it's $15,000, but it's, they're trying to save $8,000. Well, $8,000 to the buyer might not be that big of a deal, but to some sellers, $8,000 is, $8,000's $8,000. That's a lot of money. And they'll use this inspection objection to manipulate the situation and to getting that $8,000 back. And again, this is why we do the things that we do in order to get to this point. if they're the only offer and you've been on the market for 9 months, well, you're just going to kind of take it up the butt. If this is the only offer that you've gotten, you've been on the market for 9 months, you're going to have to take it. If you want to sell the house, right? Or if you want to be on the market for another 9 months, you don't really have any leverage in that situation. Now, the beautiful thing about the playbook is in this situation, let's say we had a multiple offer situation, the winning bid, they come in and they give us a ridiculous inspection objection. And they say, oh, well, we just want $12,000 in a credit, and we'll in lieu of all repairs, we'll just do that. What I get to do then, and this is one of my favorite phone calls. I love these phone calls because then you get to see if people are actually serious or they're just bullshitting you. I'll get to call them and go, you know what? We appreciate the inspection objection. Thank you very much for sending all that over. We'll be sure to look into all that. Here's what we're going to do, though. You won this offer. I have 4 or 5 or 10 other buyers who are very, very sad that they didn't win this house. And every single one of them told me, if something happens with this contract, please give them a call because they are still interested and they want to still put in an offer. And remember, where are we at in the timeline? We're 3 to 4 days after this contract signing. So they haven't had time to go out. They're probably back working this week. They haven't had time to go out and find their new house that they love. They're still sad they missed out on this one. So I'm talking to the buyer's agent. What we're going to do is we're not going to fix anything. You can take the house as it is, or feel free to terminate. But I can tell you, if this buyer terminates, I will be back under contract before you can get back on the phone with your buyer to tell them that it's terminated. I have multiple offers ready to go. And sometimes in these situations, not always the highest offer is the one that's picked because of maybe there's a timeline thing or terms or whatever the case is. It's not always the best offer is the highest offer. So in these situations, I'll go, you guys were not the highest offer actually. So, if the buyer doesn't want to take this house as it is, we'd love to continue working with them. But if they don't want to take this as it is, we have other offers that we're happy to pursue. So just let me know what you want to do. And most of the time, because I've done my due diligence on the front end, these people are actually serious and they just have a bad agent giving them bad advice, thinking that they're going to pull one over. But unfortunately, they ran into this guy. So they don't get to do that. And most of the time, they'll just say, okay, yeah, actually, can we just do, 2 of the 37 things? This is the 2 that they actually cared about in the first place. And then from that point, we can kind of negotiate. But long story short, if you do the playbook right, you can ward off a lot of these people who just use inspection to manipulate the sales price back to where they wanted it. Cool. So, inspection. How does this work? So they're going to hire their own inspector. The buyer's going to hire their own inspector at their own, their own expense. The bummer in Colorado, and not every state is like this, but Colorado does not have any governing body or licensing requirements for a home inspector. So if you, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, if you would like to be a home inspector, you deem yourself, I am now, Sally's home inspection services. Congratulations, you're a home inspector. Not ideal. What I've found is there's a lot of home inspectors. Most of them are pretty good. Most of them are decent. There's a few that are excellent. And then there's a bunch who either miss stuff completely or they'll give you a 250-page report of all of the minute micro things that they found. And frankly, just overwhelms buyers. I hate when I see inspection reports that are, over 100 pages. I've got an inspector, Jared LeBlanc. He's the best. Use him. I will tell everybody and their brother to use it. Jared LeBlanc at Affinity Home Inspections. He's the best. Jared finds what's wrong and nothing more. He doesn't do a lot of fluff. He finds if there's something wrong, he's going to find it. He doesn't miss things. But he's not going to go in and this texture was peeling in the top corner of this bedroom, and I'm going to notate it. Maybe we have a licensed contractor. We recommend a licensed contractor come and evaluate that. No, he doesn't do any of that shit. A really good inspector will find the things that are wrong and put that in the report, and that's it. So just kind of keep that in mind as you see inspections. Sometimes You'll see some kind of franchise guys, whatever the case is. Inspectors, when you're on the selling side, inspectors are who they are. You don't have any control over that after getting under contract. What you can do, and in some certain situations, I have recommended this, you can get a pre-listing inspection. So what we would do is before we even put it on the market, we'll say, okay, I think this house, in the condition that I'm seeing with the comparables that I'm looking at, we're going to sell for $500,000. Let's list it at $500,000. Just to be safe, let's get a property inspection. So we'll do a property inspection, a sewer scope, and a radon test. Get a property inspection. We'll come in and they'll go, oops, roof is absolutely damaged. We need to replace. Hail damage is really bad. Sewer scope goes up. We got a big crack in the line. Whole thing needs to be replaced. Radon test comes back and we're, radon, the level is 32.4 on average. The level of mitigation, the level of radon where mitigation is required is 4, and we're at 32. Okay, well, all of those things, now we know ahead of time. Now we have to disclose those things. Some people really don't like doing that. Again, personal philosophy, open and honest. That's how I do things. So if we need to do that, I get it. However, now we can look at, okay, now it needs a roof, now it needs this and this and this. Okay, actually, yeah, we're going to price it more at $425 or whatever. Not $425, that's not that much, but you get the idea. We're going to price it a little lower now. So then when people call, they go, hey, this is really low for this area. What's the deal? I can go, hey, we've got this. Here's an inspection report for you. We understand that X, Y, and Z are things that need to be fixed. We get it. We're working on that. We would love for, if your buyers are interested, to take the house as it is. Here's their inspection report that we've already paid for. We'd love to save your buyers some time. We've already fixed X, Y, and Z, and let's just take it as is with this knowledge of the inspection report, and let's just completely skip the inspection period. And I've had a lot of success with that. That's actually been very, very helpful to sellers, and I think buyers appreciate it too, because then it saves them, property inspection, sewer scope, and a radon test. I mean, that's like $700-800. It's been a while since I've priced that out for a buyer, so I don't know what those go for. But I mean, I've had inspectors charge $1,100-1,200 for that service for those three. I think that's high, but if we can save the buyer, in their mind, we're saving them money. But really, what we're doing is we're saving the seller from having to go through one of those 3 big hurdles that we talked about. We're just going to remove the inspection completely out of the process because it's already done. To me, that's a value add to the seller. I know that there are agents out there that will say, don't ever do a property inspection, pre-listing inspection. You don't want to have to disclose anything. You don't want to have to know anything. It's like, whatever. You do you. I'm going to do me. I think it's a value add, and I think it helps sellers keep more money in their pockets that way than not. To each his own. Okay? With doing the inspections, we don't want surprises. Surprises in a real estate transaction are bad. Surprises are great for birthdays, not for real estate. So if we can get ahead of all these problems and head them off before they become problems, everybody's going to sleep better at night. Okay? So let's talk about when we get one of these inspection reports back. What do we do? Well, this, again, starts another negotiation period. Okay, so there's an inspection objection deadline. And normally 2 to 3 days, depending on when that falls, we're going to have an inspection resolution deadline. Okay, like we talked about before in the pricing video, seller concessions. I mentioned at that time, those may have to come into play. That's where these come into play. Okay, so maybe there's something where we don't do the pre-listing inspection, so we're just relying on the buyer's inspector. We go in and buyers say, man, this water heater, it's still functional, but it was installed in 1994. It is way past its useful life. The furnace, the same thing. They're functional, but they're very old. And we also need, whatever. Let's just focus on that. Water heater and furnace are functional but old. the buyers will say, our objection is we would like, a licensed contractor to come in and replace those items. Okay. That's not an unfair request. I get it, because you don't want to come in first week, your furnace burns out and you're out, $6,000 putting in a new furnace, whatever it costs. I don't know. So those kind of things I get. What we can do in those scenarios. Now, if you have 15, 20 offers and you're in an insane bidding war like we had, a couple years ago, in 2020 to 2022, where, 20 to 30 to 40 offers was not out of the realm of possibility, then you tell people, kick rocks. I ain't fixing shit. In this scenario where we're usually working somewhere between 2 to 5 offers, you can go, I get it. We appreciate it. Here's what we can do. Let's get a quote. Let's say the quote to replace both those things is, let's say it's $6,000 to replace both. We'll give you a $1,500 credit because they're working, right? Like you said, they're working. We'll give you a $1,500 credit towards your down payment or towards your closing costs. And that will offset, if you have to in the future, that will offset the cost of replacing them. Okay. And I started at $1,500 because, most people say, well, start at $3,000. The pricing discussion aside, when we're talking about, negotiation here, you want to start with this kind of stuff. You want to start a little lower than what you're willing to do, because that's how negotiation works in our country, except for when we're talking about pricing homes. It's the only thing that I found where it's the complete opposite. You don't want to overprice. So we'll say, okay, it's $6,000 to replace those. So how about we do this? We'll do a $1,500 credit towards your closing costs, and we'll buy the seller will buy the buyer a home warranty that covers these certain things for 13 months. Okay, so then that costs, home warranty's $600. We're at $2,100, where this is a $6,000 repair today. Maybe in another year, it's going to be a $7,000 repair. What are we doing with the closing cost concession instead of a price reduction? Okay, functionally, doesn't matter either way to the seller. It's still the same way that it comes off of the seller's bottom line, whether it's a price reduction or a seller concession. It comes off of the bottom line. When we're talking about the buy side, and this is kind of where you have to put your mind in the other side, a seller concession reduces the amount of cash needed to bring to closing, whereas a price reduction lowers the price. Self-explanatory. Well, if you just lower the price $1,500, that only changes the loan amount $1,500. Okay, that lowers their payment down, what, $1,500? We're talking $1 or $2 a month. Okay, and then that doesn't help them offset the cost of any sort of repair that we're negotiating here. If you give them a concession towards their closing costs, that literally reduces the amount of cash they have to bring to closing, which keeps $1,500 in their pocket. In those scenarios, there's a lot more willingness to do the seller concession at a lower percentage of the price, because you're not just lowering their loan amount by $1,500. You're putting $1,500 in the buyer's pocket. And money talks in these kinds of things. So if you have to use the seller concession, or if you have to do that here, do it with a seller concession rather than a price reduction. It makes more sense to the buyer. It makes no difference to the seller, and ends up saving the seller money in the long run. And remember, only use these things if you need to keep the deal alive. This specific deal, this contract. If you have multiple offers, like you should if you're running the playbook, then you can kind of leverage those to either get even less of an amount, or just to tell them, even if it's reasonable, hey, we've got 5 other buyers on the line who are ready to make an offer, are hoping that this contract falls out. And we don't want that to happen. We want your buyer to take it, and we got to do what's best for us. So either you take the house as it is, or we understand if the buyer wants to terminate, and we can both move in our separate directions. So it's a beautiful thing about the playbook. It really sets you up for success down the line. It heads off a lot of issues by being able to leverage the asset that you have. So, all right. All that to be said. So once we get all that done, inspection is a big one. That's normally where most deals fall out. Then the next hurdle that we have is appraisal. Okay, we talked about FHA and VA in the offer negotiation stage, though you may have conditions come up on that. And if they come up, you got to get them fixed. There's really no getting around it. It sucks. It's a time waster. And there's no like giving concessions to those. So if you can kind of know what they're looking for and you can head those off beforehand, way, way better. But the one thing that you can do is if there's a shortfall, let's say whatever, there's no conditions or it's a conventional loan, we're under contract for $500 and the appraisal comes in at $465. Okay, that's a big deal. What you can do is you can go through and you can appeal that, or you can get another appraisal. There's a number of things you can do, but let's say it's close. Let's say it's $10,000 less. Let's say it's at a price for $490, and you went in and you had all your comps ready for the appraiser, and he had a fight with his wife that morning, and he just was not going to give you full value no matter what you did. Okay, so there's a $10,000 shortage. One thing that you can do in the offer stage, now it's less common now, but in a multiple offer situation, it's possible. You can ask for appraisal gap coverage from the buyer. What is that? That means if we appraise the house, in this scenario, we appraise at $490, we're under contract for $5, the buyer will make up that gap from $490 to $500, that $10,000 gap. They will bring that to closing as if the house appraised for $500. That is a phenomenal thing if you can get it as a seller from the buyer. Not as common anymore, but it can happen. So I always ask for it every time. I haven't had it in a while, but if you can get that, especially if you're concerned about it appraising, worth doing. So, all right, so we get through appraisal, same kind of thing, appraisal objection, appraisal resolution, same deadlines as inspection, and then loan. Now, typically, the way the buyers write contracts, they do loan deadlines 3 days before closing. Your final loan deadline. Okay, these loan deadlines, people use them kind of as a catch-all in order to get out of contracts sometimes. So things like, well, we don't like whatever the case is. Well, we're going to say we don't feel comfortable with the payment that our lender is, or the interest rate that our lender is giving us. Well, you can terminate based on loan because it's the buyer's sole subjective opinion. You can terminate on loan and get your earnest money back. So loan conditions can be tough, and pushing them all the way till 3 days before closing, it doesn't allow the seller to be able to. It moves the leverage over to the buyers because you're like, well, we're 3 days before closing now. We don't want to have to go back on the market and do more showings. So maybe they'll be more willing to do what we want them to do because we're so close to closing. I always try and push those deadlines at least a week before, if not more. That helps a little bit, but in reality, loan conditions are tough. You know, if, let's say, not even something as nefarious as they're, trying to just get out of it or manipulate, job market's tough right now. There's maybe, the husband 2 days before closing, he gets laid off, or even maybe not that extreme. Maybe he gets a pay cut or demotion because of something. Well, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do with that. If the loan can't be approved, the loan can't be approved. So, I have a couple of lenders that I use who are get shit done lenders, basically. If they can't get a loan on somebody, then you can't get a loan on that person, period. We've had situations where we've gotten, in that scenario, somebody got laid off, 3 days before closing. The buyer did. And we were able to move them over to this other lender, and we had to push closing a week or two in order to go through all the new underwriting and get everything done, but we were able to still save the deal. And so it's good to have those kinds of people in your corner if you can, and be able to revive possibly dead deals, because again, you get 3 days before closing, 2 days before closing, day of closing. Knock on wood. Thank God I've never had anybody not close on the day of closing. But I know it happens. People, loan didn't come through, funding didn't come through, reran your credit report the day before, and you went to American Furniture Warehouse and opened up a $25,000 credit line to furnish your new house. Sorry, loan's not coming through. We're not closing. That's tough. So you can be a little bit more proactive with the appraisal and the inspection. Loan conditions, you just kind of have to take those as they come, and hopefully they're not too bad. They are what they are. So we got past all of the deadlines. We're past inspection. We're past appraisal. Past loan. We're clear to close. We are heading to the closing table. Let's talk through next week. Let's talk through the end of this process, what that looks like. That's going to be a shorter episode because really, if you're selling a house, usually that's a pretty big day, pretty big celebration. You got a check coming with your name on it with more numbers than you've probably ever seen in your life, and it's pretty special. So we'll talk through that in week 6, our final episode of the Playbook, next time. So thank you so much for joining me today. This was another great episode. I really enjoy talking through all this with you guys. I probably get going too fast, but I'm passionate. And I know this stuff in and out. I've done it professionally for, going on a decade now. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or feedback, or you're like, man, you talked way too fast in that part. What did you say? Slow it down for me. I get it. I'm here for you. Give me a call. Shoot me a text. I'm happy to help. The number is 303-335-9705. You can email me, rusty@rustystevenson.com. You can find me on all the socials, @TheRealtorRusty. And feel free to stop me. If you see me out and about, whatever. I'm around. I'm here to help. So, thank you very much. As per usual, Mr. Andy Barkowski is going to take us out with my freaking fantastic theme song. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your day or day tomorrow. And we will see you next week for the final installment of the Playbook. We talk about closing. All right. Have a great one. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.